Okay, so we are Shaar Hayichud Vehaemunah. We're using the text of Lessons in Tanya, the latest edition, and we are at the end of chapter 4, page 50. Thank you. And this chapter he explained that after we learn the first and second chapter and third chapter, we understand that the world is batel Hashem. But once we understood the idea of bittul, a different question came up. Then how is it possible that the world does exist as a real, true existence if everything is batel to Hashem? And to answer that question, that's chapter 4. And the answer to the question is that there are two attributes of Hashem. One is chesed and one is gerura. Chesed is the attribute of Hashem to manifest His light. Yeah. What? It's page 50.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Manifest, give off Hashem's light, that it could shine infinitely. Shine infinitely means it could shine anywhere, in the highest world, in the lowest worlds, but it's much more than that. It can shine to the point that it would create Hashem's light, could result in creating yesh miyayin, something out of nothing. And this is something that, as far as we're concerned, it is inconceivable for a human being how that this is possible. So just like we can't understand Hashem's attribute of chesed, we also can't understand the attribute of gerura, which is to be giving life to something, which means that it's found in that creation, penetrates every aspect of it, every fiber of its being is being penetrated with the godly light. Otherwise, it couldn't exist. So it's not just their secondary thing; it's its very reason, very cause for its existence, and yet it's totally non-existent, as if it doesn't exist. And we explained yesterday why is gerura something which is beyond comprehension, even though we too have something which is called gerura, which means we can also conceal. A person can conceal his wisdom, a person could conceal a certain secret that he has, a person could conceal his emotions, a person could conceal himself physically, hiding behind something. So concealment is not necessarily a godly attribute. Humans have that too. So we explained that the concealment of Hashem is very different. And to give the most simplest of mashalim is that if a person is in a room and he conceals himself by hiding behind a wall, hiding behind a curtain, and no one sees him, what does it mean no one sees him? It means that there's actually something blocking that the reflection of his body doesn't reach the other person's eye. Normally there's, whichever way vision works, but there's something they're making contact with from my image and the other person's eyes. When I'm behind a wall, it's not possible. Something's blocking, and therefore the person can't see me. But is it possible to stand in front of someone, their eyes are wide open, they're fully alert, and I'm standing right in front of them, and I say, I don't want to be seen. I'm not talking about science fiction stories there. And by the way, even the science fiction stories, if they're not seen, by the way, there are also stories in Torah with tzaddikim like that. There was a famous tzaddik who was called Rabbi Leib Saras. Rabbi Leib, and his mother's name was Sarah. And he was called by his mother's name. Just briefly, there's a story behind it. Why was he called by his mother's name? Because his mother was a young woman working in an inn. Her father had an inn, and they served the local Jewish community, the local non-Jewish community. And one time, the nobleman's son happened to come by that inn, and he saw her. He was attracted to her, and he said to them he'd give them all the money in the world if they would allow him to marry her. And of course, it was out of the question. She's Jewish. She's not Jewish. He was very upset, and he left. But they were getting worried because, after all, these people had no rules. They did whatever they wanted. And who knows what's going on in his mind. They were thinking maybe she should leave, go away somewhere. And one day, the nobleman's son came with a group of people, not to their inn, but to a different inn in a village or a city not far from where they lived. And they were all drinking. And the nobleman was priding himself that he's soon going to that village, and he's going to take this girl again, whether she likes it or not, whether her parents like it or not. He's taking her as a wife, and he was proud of what he's going to do. In that village, there was an older Jew who I think he was a Malamed. He was listening to the conversation, and he realized that this girl's life is in danger. So he slipped out behind the back door, and he ran to the other village, and he warned them and prepared them for what's going on. And of course, they were all panicking. What could they do? And he said the only thing they can do is to marry her off right now, make a wedding. When he'll walk in, he'll see that she's married already. It's over. But what do you mean marry off? How are we going to marry off right now? So he said, I'll marry her, and tomorrow morning I'll give her a get after the guy leaves. But in the meantime, there's a real marriage, and he'll realize that he missed the opportunity. So quickly they got food, and they got an orchestra, and they played music, and he married her, and there was a big simcha. The simcha was that her life was being saved. Of course, he came. When he saw what was going on, he told him that she just got married. He was fuming. But I guess he knew that he couldn't do that. She's married already to someone. So he left, and her life was saved. The next morning, he said, okay, let's go to the Rav to do the get. And his wife said, you saved my life, and I don't mind staying with you. And they remained married, and they had a son, and his name was Rabbi Leib, who was a very big tzaddik, a big rebbe. And he used to be called Rabbi Leib Saras, which means he was called by his mother's name because she was the one that was through what his father did for his mother, that's how he was born, and that was a great act of Mesiras Nefesh. So one of the things that he did was actually through his life was that he used to save Yidden who were being persecuted by noblemen. And there are stories where he would walk in. No one saw him walk in because he made himself invisible. And he walked in and he did whatever he had to do. And there were times we walked in and he screamed at the nobleman, or he took a stick and he beat him up. And the nobleman was screaming and shouting to his soldiers, why don't you do something? And they didn't know what he's talking about. They thought he was lost his mind because nothing's happening. But it was really him. And so there is such a thing. But I think even when a person would make himself invisible, that would mean that something about him changes to the point that it's no longer visible to your eyes. But is it possible? This concealment and the fact that Hashem's life force is concealed and hidden, Nikra b'Shem Kalim. In Kabbalah, this is Kalim. When you hear the word Kalim, you think vessels. So, of course, you're thinking of a vessel, pots and pans, but Chas v'Sholem, we're talking about something in a spiritual way. So, the Chayas Atzmai, the Chayas, the life force, Nikra b'Shem So the better mashal for this, using the word kalim, would be, let's say, like the brain and the power of intellect. Again, the way Torah sees things is different than the way science thinks. In science, there's no recognition of a neshama. So everything that happens in the human body and everything that we experience is purely biological. Everything is coming from the guf. How they explain it, whichever way they explain it. I mean, there's definitely part that they can't explain, but everything is coming from the guf. So the brain, the physical organ, the brain, has the power to think intellectually. According to Hasidus, the physical organ of the brain is no different than anything else physical, which is dead. Has no life to it. The life comes from the neshama. The soul gives it life. Not only in life, but the faculties come from the neshama. The power to think, to understand, to comprehend, to perceive things, it cannot come from the flesh and blood and muscles and the tissue in the physical body. It comes from the neshama. But the organ of the brain is the keli, the vessel. It's a conduit through which that faculty can function. No different than a person who is a writer needs his pen to write, and no different than a person who's an artist needs his brush to draw. The intellectual faculty of the neshama needs the physical organ, the brain, in order to think. And it needs the eye in order to see. And it needs a physical organ like an ear in order to hear. And needs a physical organ like a mouth in order to speak. But the power of speech and the power of hearing and the power of seeing and the power of intellect, all this comes from the neshama. So the neshama is the and the organ is the keli. Again, the goes into the keli, and through the keli, it could function. So if a person, chas v'shalom, has an accident and something happens to the physical organ, it's the physical organ that has been injured or damaged, but the power of seeing of the eye or the power of hearing of the ear is intact just like before. So what's the problem? The problem is being that something went wrong with the physical organ, it's no longer a keli. And the power of vision can't go into the eye because the structure of the eye that made it a keli for vision was now obstructed. There's something went wrong with it. It's broken up. So same thing is in the spiritual worlds. Just like the keli covers up on what's inside, what does that mean? The power of intellect, when it goes into the brain, is compromised. We don't know how much, but tens of thousands of degrees compromised. It's not as powerful as it was before the neshama came into the body, which means the neshama in Shamayim also has intellect. And the neshama understands the deepest secrets of the universe of Hashem, and that's what the neshama is doing in Gan Eden. That's its pleasure. But when it goes into the body, it can't understand those things anymore. It only has the ability to understand things in the physical world. Yeah.
When you say the power of intellect, is it the potential for intellect or actually the knowledge of literally everything?
The potential is to understand everything. But when I say the power, I mean a certain spiritual energy that enables us to think and understand and comprehend. As time goes by with AI and everything else, people are thinking that humans are a complicated computer, but it's not. A human has an neshama. I think I told you this once that many years ago was a Friday night and they invited a guest. This was when I was in Australia. He was an Orthodox scientist, and the discussion by the shir was that in the future, which is now, but this is 50, 60 years ago, in the future they're going to have robots and they're going to be intelligent. And if you have such a robot, could you use them for a minion?
No.
What's the reason why not?
They have no soul.
So his answer was because they're not Jewish. And you can't immerse them in a mikveh because you'll ruin the mechanism. The whole thing will get ruined. But in reality, I think the reason why he said that is mistama, because he thinks of a human being like a robot is the same thing. It's all complicated things put together, but it's not. A human being has an neshama, that's his true identity. And the physical organs in the body and everything else that functions with absolute brilliance, and that's what scientists do study, but it's only a keli for something much higher, much deeper. Yeah.
So when the neshama comes into the body and you say the intellect, the neshama is reduced, did I understand that?
Right.
Reduced in terms of what we have access to, or even reduced within itself?
Reduced, well, we learned that the neshama, even though it goes into the body, the essence still remains intact. So that part of the neshama that's actually invested in the physical organ, the brain, that part of the neshama now is limited. It can only understand things that are connected to Gashmius. It can't understand things that are purely spiritual.
The neshama, really? I guess I might have learned this before, but
But the neshama, as it's invested in the physical body.
and that's where there's those two parts of the neshama.
Right. There's a neshama that's not affected by the body. That part still maintains its original level and ability, but the part of the neshama that actually lowers itself, descends in the body, and flows through the physical body and through the physical organs, that energy is no longer what it used to be. Now it's very limited in what it could comprehend.
And it only comprehends stuff connected with physical.
Yep.
Does it have a comprehension that there is a Hashem?
No, like we have a comprehension. There's Atzilus, there's Bria, Yetzira. We don't have no clue what it's all about. We're just learning. Even the neshama, our own neshama. Who forget about Atzilus for a moment. Someone will ask you, what does the neshama look like? What's my answer? No clue. I know that it's there. I feel it's. I see it's performing different things, which is me. But if you ask me what it looks like, I have no idea. And we can't have an idea because it's spiritual. So this is, so the or, the light is like the Shem Havaya, that's the light of Hashem that shines. The Keli, which covers up on it, is Tzimtzum, and that's from Shem Elokim. So that means that the second paragraph here shows you how it is with the Spheros, that the light of the Spheros, that's the or, that's unlimited, and the Keli, that's where the limitations come from. The Keli, they limited. And to give an example, he doesn't give the example that I just gave, even though it is found in other Maimarim. Here he gives the example of words. Turn the page about Kalim Hein Oasius. These are the words. What we learned in the first chapter of this part of Tanya, that Hashem created the world with words. What are words? Words are Kalim. And with these words, we see the same thing, that when a person wants to communicate to someone else, feeling, let's say, emotion, they express it through words. How excited they're about something, how much they love someone, how much they're upset about something, whatever they're describing in words, whatever comes out through their mouth, you can compare that to what they're feeling inside emotionally. So what comes out of their mouth? What comes out of the mouth is the exterior. I told you was that if you would, when they walked over to people that were held hostage, or to their parents or their brothers or sisters or children or parents, and they said, how do you feel today that your brother or son or daughter came out of captivity? But no matter what they said and they described, they feel unbelievable, they feel uplifted, they feel inspired, they feel any word they said, even if they would say the whole thesaurus, it doesn't describe what they're feeling inside. These are words. It does describe, we hear it, and we have some idea, but you can't have the idea unless you experience something like this yourself. Now, of course, this is something which is intense emotion, but the truth is it applies to all emotion. That when I feel something in me, part of that experience is what I'm experiencing, and that can come through words. What's the words? The words are the external aspect of what I'm feeling. So I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling high, I'm feeling inspired, I'm feeling driven, whatever it is, the words only express the exterior of what I'm feeling. And the same with intellect. When I understand something, what I understand and the way I understand it is in my head. And that can't come out of my head. When I speak to someone, I explain them what I'm understanding. That's the exterior of what's inside my head. So words also conceal the light, and that's the tzimtzum. And that's where everything comes from Hashem's words. Where do the words come from? That's the next line. Shasharsham, the root of all the letters of the alphabet, is Oisis Mansapach are the 5 letters Mansapach. You ever heard of Mansapach? No. Mansapach are the 5 letters of the Aleph Beis that are, yes,
From your throat.
no.
Thank God.
These are the 5 that, what?
Final.
Final letters. These are the 5 letters that are the final letters. Only these 5 letters could be simple and final. Mem, there's a final mem, there's a final nun, there's a final tzaddik, final pain, and final chof. What does that mean? What's the definition of a final letter? It puts an end to the letter. So it puts an end to the letter, that means it's gvura. That's what gvura is all about. To limit, to put boundaries, to stop something, to withhold something. And these are the 5 letters that's where all the letters come from, because being that letters are gvura, so their source is these 5. And where do the 5 letters come from? Where's the next next station? Shein hey gvuris hamachalkes mafridis hahevav akel behemoth tzoyzaper this habes chobes oisis, and they represent the 5 gateways that we speak about, and we spoke about this before. That they're the ones that break up the sound, the voice, into all the different 22 letters. So that's 5, and this is 5, and that's the source of the letters. And where's the source of the 5 gevuras? Remember I told you that number 5 is connected to breaking things up into details. Number 1, the voice. When a person speaks, all the letters that come out are broken up into these 5 categories. If the voice goes through the teeth, these are the letters like tzaddik and zayin. Through the lips, it's pei and beis. Through the throat, it's different letters. Through the tongue, it's different letters. And through the palate and the throat, it's different letters. So these are the 5 things. And we also find this in other areas, the fingers. If a person would have a hand, but Chaz Hashem no 5 fingers, they could move their hand in any direction, but they couldn't make all the detailed forms and shapes that we know without the 5 fingers. Whether it's forms and shapes with letters or pictures, drawings, that's because you have 5. Without the 5 fingers, you couldn't do that. It would just be very general movements. So what breaks down the movements of the hands into details? 5 fingers. Where else do you find 5?
The Torah.
Well, you'll find that the Torah is made up of 5 svarim, and then there's a whole long list of 5. Generally speaking, that's what 5 is connected. Pesach, we took the matzah and broke it into 5 parts. These are called the 5 gevuras. So where's the source of these 5? So we got the source of tzimtzum are the letters. The source of the letters are the 5 letters, and that comes from the 5 different gateways for the mouth. And where these 5 come from? They come from the 5 gevuras, and that's butzino de kardonisa. I have to confess that this word, I don't think I found it anywhere else except for in Tanya. It's a word in Kabbalah. What is it? He explains the next page. What is he referring to? She gevura ilo datik yomer. This is gevura, but not one of the spheres. Gevura the way it is in Keser, and in Keser it's in Atik. I just took this along here in case you forgot what the world looks like.
Rabbi Majeski, Mansepach, that's from the 5 gevuras?
Yeah.
And the 5 gevuras are in the gevura Atikyonim?
That's what he's saying now, right? That's the source of it. So in other words, in each one of these worlds, there are spheres. Each sphere that you're looking at consists of two things, a ur and a keli. Chokhmah is a ur and a keli. Bina is a ur and a keli, which means each one there's this light and energy, and then through the keli it goes through tzimtzum, and then enables it to shine light to the next level, and the next level, and the next level. But the ur and the keli in the lower world comes from the ur and the keli in the higher world. The ur and the keli in the higher world comes from the higher, the higher, the higher, and the ultimate source of tzimtzum comes from Hey Bris Atik. So you're looking on top of the page, there's Keser, which is the infinite light of Hashem, Ein Sof. In Keser itself, there's Atik, Yemen, and Arachampin. One is called the inner dimension of Keser, one is the external dimension of Keser. So the ultimate source is in the internal dimension of Keser, which is Atik. That's where you have the source for Gevura and Tzimtzum. And that place is also the source for Chesed. You do as it's known, the to all those that know the secrets of Kabbalah. The word chen, you normally know this as meaning grace. But here it's actually an acronym. It stands for two words. Chochmas, Nistaras, hidden wisdom. So a lot of times in Tanya it says this is known, chen, those who know chen, those who know the hidden secrets. Now, when you look at it, you say to yourself, so what in the world is all of this about? Oh, after you explain Tzimtzum, then once it knows where Tzimtzum comes from. Tzimtzum comes from the Kalim, and that are the Oisius, and the Oisius come from the five, and the five come from Gevura in Butzina Kardunisa. And what is that? That's Gevura in Atik, which is all the way on the top, and from there also comes Chesed. What's the point of explaining all this? So here there's something which has been pretty much of a mystery probably in all previous generations, and that is, remember I showed you that this piece begins with a bracket? Usually when there's a bracket, there's another bracket at the end to close the bracket. There is no bracket here at the end. Yes, there is. They put in a bracket. But in the original Tanya, there was no bracket. I'm not sure why they put this in, but I'll still tell you what I'm talking about. In the original Tanya, there was no bracket here. Then you turn the page. If you think this was confusing, the next chapter, the entire chapter, is very confusing. It's also much more like language of Kabbalah. And at the end of the chapter, you look at the bottom, you see the end of the chapter. There's a bracket, page 57. That, in the original Tanya, there were two brackets there, not one. So it was understood that that must be a mistake. However, the Rebbe once explained it. That explanation is found here. It's a few pages, very deep explanation. And explain that actually the Alter Rebbe comes to explain something new here. And that new thing is in a bracket. And the bracket begins at the end of chapter 4, and it ends at the end of chapter 5. Which means it's not a mistake. Thank you very much. It's not a mistake. The reason why there's no end to the bracket in chapter 4, again, not here, but in the original Tanya, because it doesn't end there. It ends at the end of chapter 5. And the reason why there are two brackets at the end of chapter 5 is one bracket is for the local one. Right there, there's a bracket, the last line. And the other one is closing the bracket from chapter 4. Did I confuse you? This was not Kabbalah. This should have been simple.
Where's the bracket?
It's just a long bracket.
Right, it's a long bracket, an entire chapter.
No, but on page 57.
Look at page 51 first. No, look at page,
Right.
Not 51, but page 49, right? With the part we started learning today has a bracket.
At which word?
On the bottom, there's only one Hebrew there, Vihine,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Now, when you turn the page, this is the end of the chapter. There is a bracket here, but in the original Tanya, there was no bracket, which means the bracket had no closing brackets. On the other hand, at the end of chapter 5, there were two brackets. Look at page 57 on the bottom. There used to be two brackets there.
Yeah, I was looking at the English, that's why I was so confused.
Oh, okay. The English, it's
Totally.
parentheses, yeah. So the two brackets that I've explained was because the whole entire chapter 5 is part of the bracket. And the one who printed it made a mistake. He thought that, why is there two brackets? Probably a mistake. But he didn't realize one bracket is to close the bracket that just opened up a line ago, where it says Bezohar, the word Zohar, and then it closes. And the other bracket is to close the bracket that started in chapter 4. So what is it that the whole chapter is here to explain? I'm not going to go into it now. I'm going to continue chapter 6, but if you look at page 58, that's where it starts the explanation. 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 73, till 74 is all the explanation to this bracket. What is the bracket all about? So just doing this piece alone will take us a few weeks if I would do it. So bli neder, I'm going to try to give a synopsis of what the Rebbe is saying here. But to get a better understanding of it, we'll do chapter 6 and then we'll go back.
Rabbi Majeski?
Yeah.
Actually, never mind.
Figured it out? That was quick. I took a drink of water and she figured it out. Okay.
Oh, actually, no, I have my question again.
Didn't work out good.
In Atigamen, if that is where Gevura and like Tzimtzum originate from, how can Tzimtzum originate from a place that there is no Tzimtzum, like before that Tzimtzum even starts? Is this Tzimtzum Arishain, or it's not the same thing?
No.
How can Tzimtzum exist in the place that?
The question is a
Before
very
it
good
came to-
question because this is Ein Sof. So the point, which will later help us understand what the whole bracket is all about, that's actually the point that Tzimtzum really originates in Hashem's infinite power. That's where the ability to do Tzimtzum comes from. Tzimtzum is not because there's something in Hashem that's limited and that manifests in a way of Tzimtzum. It actually comes from the fact that Hashem is unlimited. Because he's unlimited, he can manifest in a revealed way and in a concealed way.
Is it actually Tzimtzum in Atigamen?
It's the source of Tzimtzum.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering.
It's the source of where Tzimtzum comes from.
And where's Tzimtzum Harishain?
So above this level, which is Kesed, there's a world which is called Akudim. And above the world that's called Akudim, there's another world which is called Adam Kadmon. Above Adam Kadmon, there's a Tzimtzum.
What?
So
And that
Before-
Tzimtzum is called Tzimtzum Arisha.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense.
No, because it had to do something to get to Adam Kadmon. No, that makes sense. Yeah, you couldn't have Adam Kadmon and say that's Hashem, because obviously it's not. There
Right.
has to be a Tzimtzum before Adam Kadmon.
To call it something besides.
But there has to be a Tzimtzum before that Tzimtzum, and that's where I'm stuck.
Okay, you're stuck up there. Okay, you're in a good place. Yes.
Just bringing it all the way down, and you said our thinking is not part of the physical body, it's sourced in Hashem and the Shama. That just blew me away that even if you thought it was sourced in the physical body, that a brain would think. Like
Exactly.
it's I never thought of that. Like
According to science, the brain is
even
doing the
just-
thinking.
It's mind blowing that if it like developed this brain that thinks. I mean, of course, it's
Right. So you didn't say brain blowing, you said mind blowing, right?
yeah.
It blows the intellect.
What are the three above Kesser? It's Kesser, or it's Tzimtzum Rishon, Adam Kadmon, and then what? And then Kesser?
There's a world called Akudim. And then there's Kesed. Then there's Atzilus, and then the four worlds and so on. Okay, so now here is going to go into explaining more than was not really the time to do it very far. So let me just say what he's going to explain, at least an introduction. What he's going to explain is how this point that we just mentioned, that the tzimtzum by Hashem really comes from his being infinite. In other words, if you look at a person, you say, I have the ability to do things in a generous way, and I also have it in me to be, to make things more limited, in a way that things are restricted or disciplined. That means I have in me a certain aspect of limit. And that comes out in the way I deal with this or that or something else. But Hashem, we're not saying that there's something in Hashem, not even a dot or a potential or something which is limited. And that's where the power of limitation comes from, to limit things in the world. What we're saying is it comes from Hashem being the opposite, infinite. And because he's infinite, he can do things in an infinite way, and he can do things in a limited way because he's infinite, but not because he has an infinite streak, a finite streak in him. He doesn't have a limited streak in him, and that's where all the limitations come from. Just the opposite. He is absolute infinity. And because he's absolute infinity, there's nothing that he can do. He can even make things in a very finite way. To understand this better, we will learn chapter 6. So we're not going to go past chapter 6 because it's very complicated. Everyone, of course, is after learning the 6th chapter, you might want to do it on your own, but we're going to go up until the end of chapter 6. Yeah.
How, if the source of tzimtzum comes from Atik Yamin, can Hashem tzimtzum himself from Adam Kadmai to, I don't remember the one.
Every one to the next is a tzimtzum.
Right, but the source of tzimtzum already comes from the 4th tzimtzum.
So obviously this tzimtzum, which we say the source is Atik Yamin, its original source has to be tzimtzum Rishon.
Everything that has an original source.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Except for the essence of the essence. Okay, to be continued.
That's Atmas.
What?
That's Atmas.
No, the original source is before Atmas. I'm saying is from Tzimtzum Rishon.
So you have
What?
Atmas comes after Tzimtzum
No,
Rishon?
before.
Right.
Before.
What's the OG?
Atmas saying so.
Oh, it is Atmas.
What about orange?
What about what?
Orange. I always thought it was
Generally, we say Orisov, referring to the light of Kesser.
right. That's what I thought.
But
But if there's Ein Sof,
that means that it's infinite, unlimited. So we're saying there are higher levels in the infinite.
that's fine.
Because all those worlds above a Kesser already, all the Akudim is infinite, and Adam Kadmon is infinite, and every Tzimtzum Rishon light.
All of that could be called orange.
Yeah.
Rabbi, can I tell you a very quick story about words that's so beautiful?
Yes.
Hostage, she came into
Oh,
a hostage. Who had been
Okay,
raped,
look.
and she was in a room with she was like in her late 20s, and she was in a room with a younger woman. She was just always trying to hold her up, the younger woman, yes, emotionally. And one day, and every morning she was in motivation.
Is the
Oh,
source
like
of
the
the
five,
source.
so one day, she just couldn't, she sat up in bed and she said, Mo days. She couldn't say, honey, just, and all of a sudden she saw on the wall, Allah, John,
Together?
third letter is.
Yeah.
She turned,
But I-
the woman said, I see.
you're serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
This out.
For the second one to say it, like,
Right.
the person could doubt herself
Right.
that she was hallucinating.
Right. Yeah. Special in the show must be given. Okay, have a great day.
Thank you. Sounds like our environment, it's just a copy and paste of this.
It is.
Via what?
Via
data?
You said something about this, yes, so I do you know right here around my dog? Every Sunday. Yes! I ran into him.
Where?
In Sweet Precious. She picks up Candy Crush Kids.
Oh, I didn't realize that was there.
Oh, I mean. Oh, wait. Right, so I'm saying she's my. No, we just said you were supposed to be here. Have a good day.
Material.
Yeah.
I love lace.
No, we're just wondering who's in minutes fast. What was I talking about? Oh, sorry. Yes. And he's got for rings. Steve on. You can't miss it.
Smash.
Yeah. It's June 1st.
But the other thing is like, wow.
Yeah.
You know. I'll wear that. You do want copies.
Oh, very good.
Wherever you're fine for me.
I don't find. I mean.
Okay.
Where did you go for your first months? Or no, it's where my friends only went for hers.
Is it private?
No, it's most of all the two months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or official.
Yeah, it's.